A man pushes his small wooden boat into the forest. The trees are not trees as you know them. They are roots that climb out of the water like fingers, dense and tangled, forming walls on either side of the narrow channel. The water is brown, not muddy brown. Dark brown, the color of steeped tea, the color of something that has been decomposing for centuries. He is here for honey. He has no gun. He has no protection. He wears a mask on the back of his head, a painted face crude, staring backward, because the thing that hunts here always attacks from behind. He will not come back. In another swamp, 8,000 kilometers away, a boat overturns in water that looks calm, almost pastoral. The animal that did it weighs 3 tons. It did not attack out of hunger. It attacked because this was its water, and it did not ask for visitors. And in yet another wetland, the largest of its kind on Earth, the ground itself is on fire. Animals that have no legs to run are burning alive in their own habitat. The water boils, the air poisons, the ground opens. There are places on this planet where every element, water, earth, air, and the things that live between them, has turned against human survival, not by malice, not by design, but by the simple, indifferent machinery of nature operating at full intensity. These are not the beautiful wetlands of postcards and nature documentaries. These are swamps and mangroves where the line between ecosystem and execution chamber has been erased. And the most lethal of them all, the one that earned its place at the top of this list, through a body count that spans centuries, is a forest where the most efficient predator on land learned to hunt the most abundant prey on Earth. You. Stay until the end. Because the number 1 on this list is not just the deadliest mangrove on the planet. It is the only place in the world where a specific predator evolved to see you as food. Before we descend, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I read every single one, and it's always staggering to see how many countries these videos reach. Now, let's begin the countdown. Number 10. The Okefenokee Swamp, Georgia, United States. It is the largest blackwater wetland in North America. Nearly 1/800 square kilometers of water so saturated with tannins from decomposing vegetation that it looks like coffee. The color is the first thing you notice. The silence is the second. And the third thing, the thing you don't notice until it's too late, is the ground beneath you. The Okefenokee is built on peat, layers and layers of partially decayed plant matter, compressed over thousands of years into a spongy, treacherous surface that can look solid and behave like quicksand. Step off the established path and the ground opens, not dramatically, not with a roar. It simply yields, and you sink, slowly, steadily, as the peat closes around your legs like a hand. There are alligators, American alligators, hundreds of them, floating just below the black surface so that only their eyes break the waterline. There are cottonmouths, water moccasins, venomous snakes that do not flee from humans, that stand their ground and open their white mouths in warning. There are rattlesnakes in the dry areas. There are black bears. But the true danger of the Okefenokee is not any single animal. It is the combination, the disorientation, the water that looks solid in the fading light, the snakes that blend perfectly into the dark surface, the alligators that you never see until the water erupts. Local legends tell of people who walked into the swamp and were simply never seen again. No body, no trace, no sound. The swamp took them. Whether that means the peat swallowed them, or the water claimed them, or something with teeth found them first, the swamp does not return what it takes. You are not meant to be here, and the Okefenokee has 1,000 ways of making that clear. Number 9. The coastal wetlands of the Sea of Okhotsk, far eastern Russia. Imagine a swamp. Now freeze it. The wetlands along the western coast of the Sea of Okhotsk are among the most remote and least studied on Earth. Temperatures here can plummet to -40 degrees Celsius in winter. The water does not simply get cold, it turns to ice, and the landscape transforms from a wetland into a frozen hellscape of ice sheets, tidal cracks, and slush that can swallow a boot, a leg, a person. This is the domain of the Kamchatka brown bear, one of the largest bear subspecies on the planet, with males weighing up to 650 kilograms. These bears gather along the coast and the wetland river mouths, and they are aggressive. Unlike many bear populations that have learned to avoid humans through generations of contact, the bears of this region have had relatively little exposure to people, and their response to encounters is unpredictable. They have killed. They do kill. But the cold is the true killer. The wetlands themselves become a trap. You fall through ice into water that is just above freezing, and you have minutes, sometimes seconds. The body shuts down, the muscles seize, and the wetland, which looked solid, which looked like land, closes over you. There are no roads, no settlements for hundreds of kilometers, no rescue. If something goes wrong in the Okhotsk wetlands, the nearest help is a flight away, and the weather that would ground that flight is the same weather that is killing you. The planet does not need to be hot to be hostile. Here, it kills you with silence and ice. Number 8. The swamps of the Darien Gap, Colombia and Panama. There is a highway. It is called the Pan-American Highway, and it stretches from the top of Alaska to the bottom of South America. Nearly 48,000 kilometers of continuous road. Except it doesn't. There is a gap, a 106-kilometer break in the highway where the road simply stops, swallowed by one of the most impenetrable wildernesses on Earth. The Darien Gap is not just jungle. It is swamp, vast, waterlogged, crawling with venomous snakes. Fer-de-lance and bushmasters, among the most lethal serpents in the Americas, hide in the leaf litter, perfectly camouflaged, striking without warning. It is rivers that rise without warning, flash floods that can sweep away an entire group in minutes. It is tropical diseases, malaria, dengue, leishmaniasis, carried by insects that swarm in clouds so thick they block the light. And it is human. The Darien Gap has become a migration route. Hundreds of thousands of people, fleeing poverty and violence, attempt to cross it every year. In 2023, the International Organization for Migration documented at least 141 deaths in the Darien. And that number is almost certainly an undercount. Bodies are not recovered in the Darien. They sink into the swamp. They are taken by the river. They are lost to the jungle, which does not distinguish between the living and the dead. There are no hospitals, no law enforcement, no cell signal. Armed groups control sections of the route, and the swamp itself is the most efficient killer of all. Drowning, disease, snakebite, exposure. The migrants who enter the Darien know this. They enter anyway, because what they are fleeing is, in many cases, worse. This is a place where the earth itself has drawn a line and said, no further. Number 7. The mangrove coast of the Amazon basin. Brazil, where the greatest river on earth meets the ocean, there is a war zone. The Amazon River discharges approximately 209,000 cubic meters of water per second, so much that the ocean remains fresh for nearly 200 kilometers from the mouth. And in this impossible, brackish, ever-shifting boundary between river and sea, the mangroves grow. They grow in a labyrinth. Roots that interlock like a cage, channels that twist and double back on themselves, water that is too deep to wade and too tangled to navigate quickly. The mud here is not ordinary mud. It is a fine, silty, organic paste that can be waist-deep, chest-deep, deeper. And it holds. It does not release. Every step costs effort. Every step takes you further in. There are creatures here that you cannot see and cannot outrun. Electric eels, capable of delivering shocks of 860 volts, enough to stop a human heart. Piranhas in the shallower channels. Caimans, including the black caiman, which can exceed 5 meters in length and is one of the largest predators in South America. Stingrays buried in the mud, their venomous spines capable of causing injuries so severe that amputation becomes necessary. And the tide. The tide is the true executioner of the Amazon mangroves. It can rise several meters in under an hour. You are in a channel waist-deep in mud, unable to move quickly, and the water begins to rise. It does not announce itself. It simply comes, silent, brown, unstoppable. And the channel that was passable 10 minutes ago is now a river, and you are in it. And the mangroves above you are a wall of roots with no handholds. The forest does not care if you drown. The river does not care if you are taken by a caiman. They have been here for millions of years, and in all that time, they have never once made an exception. Number 6. The Everglades. Florida, United States. They call it the River of Grass, a name that sounds gentle, almost pastoral. It is neither. The Everglades is a slow-moving, 160-kilometer-wide sheet of water, flowing through sawgrass marshland, cypress swamps, and mangrove tunnels. It is the largest tropical wilderness in the United States, and it is, quietly, one of the most toxic wetlands on the planet. There are alligators. An estimated 1.3 million alligators live in Florida, and a significant portion of them inhabit the Everglades. Since 1948, the state has documented 413 unprovoked alligator bites on humans, roughly 25 of them fatal. But the alligators are, in a sense, the least of your worries. There are Burmese pythons, an invasive species that has established itself so thoroughly in the Everglades that eradication is considered impossible. These snakes can exceed 5 meters in length, and they consume everything: deer, raccoons, alligators. You can walk through chest-high sawgrass and step over a python without knowing it. And then there is the mercury. Studies by the United States Geological Survey and Florida wildlife authorities have found that alligators in the greater Everglades have mercury concentrations in their blood 3.4 to 9.3 times higher than alligators from coastal reference sites. Mercury toxicosis and poisoning has been directly implicated in the deaths of alligators here. The water itself, filtered through decades of agricultural runoff and industrial contamination, carries a neurotoxin that accumulates in the flesh of everything that lives in it. The alligators are poisoned. The fish are poisoned. The water is poisoned. And the hurricanes come. Category 5 hurricanes. The same flat, waterlogged landscape that makes the Everglades a swamp makes it a death trap in a storm surge. There is no high ground, no elevation, nothing between you and a wall of water driven by 250-kilometer-per-hour winds. The River of Grass is beautiful. It is also sick and armed and waiting. We're at the halfway point. And if you think what we've covered so far is extreme, what comes next is on another level entirely. These are not just swamps with dangerous animals. These are places where the water itself is a weapon, where the ground can disappear beneath your feet, and where the things that live here have evolved specifically to kill. If you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. And tell me in the comments, which of these places would you absolutely never set foot in? We read every comment. Now, the top 5. Number 5. The swamps of the Congo Basin, Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Congo Basin is the second largest rainforest on Earth. 3. 4 million square kilometers of forest and river and swamp, second only to the Amazon. But where the Amazon has been mapped, studied, and partially tamed, the Congo remains a darkness. And at its heart are swamps that are, even now, barely explored. The water here is black, not tannin-stained like the Okefenokee. Genuinely black, the color of ink, because the organic matter is so dense and so old that the water has become something closer to soup. You cannot see your hand beneath the surface. You cannot see what is in the water with you. And there is much in the water. Dwarf crocodiles, small but aggressive. Nile crocodiles in the deeper channels, the same species that kills hundreds of people every year across Africa. Forest elephants that wade through the swamp, far more dangerous than their savanna cousins when cornered. Venomous snakes that drop from overhanging branches into boats. But the invisible threat is the one that has shaped the history of this region more than any animal. The Congo Basin is the epicenter of some of the most devastating disease outbreaks in human history. Ebola, a virus with fatality rates that can reach 90%, has emerged repeatedly from the forest, passed to humans through contact with infected animals. The swamps are breeding grounds for malaria, sleeping sickness, and pathogens that have not yet been named because no scientist has found them yet. Expeditions into the Congo swamps have been lost, not temporarily disoriented, lost for days. A team of researchers enters the swamp, and the swamp absorbs them. The water level changes overnight. A channel that was navigable at dawn is impassable by noon. There is no horizon. There is no landmark. There is only water, and root, and canopy, and the sound of things moving in the dark water beneath you. This is not a place that tolerates visitors. It is a place that erases them. Number 4. The Okavango Delta, Botswana. It is one of the most beautiful places on Earth, and that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. The Okavango Delta is the largest inland delta on the planet, a vast system of channels, lagoons, and islands covering up to 15,000 square kilometers during peak flood. Water from the Angolan highlands flows southward, spills into the Kalahari Desert, and creates an oasis so rich in life that it supports one of the densest concentrations of large mammals anywhere in Africa. Among them, hippos. The hippopotamus is responsible for an estimated 500 to 3,000 human deaths every year in Africa, more than almost any other large mammal on the continent. They are territorial, aggressive, and deceptively fast. A hippo can run at 30 kilometers per hour on land and is equally deadly in water, where it can capsize a boat with a single movement of its massive jaws. In the Okavango, where water transport is the primary means of movement, hippo encounters are not a possibility. They are a certainty. There are also Nile crocodiles, the second largest reptile on Earth, reaching lengths of over 6 meters. In the Okavango, they are everywhere. In every channel, every lagoon, every pool of still water. They do not advertise their presence. They float, submerged, motionless, until the moment of attack, which is, more often than not, the last thing their victim sees. And there are lions. The lions of the Okavango have adapted to water in ways that are almost unheard of elsewhere. They swim between islands. They hunt in the shallows. They are comfortable in an environment where most cats would drown. A lion that can swim is a lion that can reach you anywhere in the delta. The beauty of the Okavango is a trap. The calm water, the grazing elephants, the sunset reflected in the lagoon. All of it lulls you into the belief that you are in a paradise. You are not. You are in the middle of a killing ground, surrounded by animals that are larger, faster, and more at home in the water than you will ever be. And that still mirror calm water is the last thing that many people see. Number 3. The Sud, South Sudan. It is one of the largest wetlands on Earth. Approximately 57,000 square kilometers of swamp, floating vegetation, and shifting channels in the heart of East Africa. And it is a place where the landscape itself is alive. The Sud is not a fixed wetland. It moves. The floating mats of papyrus and vegetation that cover the surface shift with the seasons, with the water levels, with the wind. A channel that existed yesterday is gone today, sealed over by a thick mat of vegetation that looks solid enough to walk on, and is not. Beneath the papyrus, the water is deep and it is populated by Nile crocodiles. A 2024 academic study documented the human-crocodile conflict in the Sud in detail. Nile crocodiles are perceived by local communities as the primary threat to life and livelihood. They attack fishermen. They attack women collecting water. They attack livestock. And in the Sud, where there is no medical infrastructure, no emergency response, and where the nearest hospital can be days away, a crocodile attack that would be survivable elsewhere is routinely fatal. The Sud is also a place of war. South Sudan has been in a state of civil conflict for much of the past 2 decades, and the Sud has served as both a refuge and a trap. People fleeing violence enter the swamp, and the swamp does not let them leave. Disease is rampant. Malaria, cholera, schistosomiasis. The water, which is the only water available, is the same water that carries disease, the same water where crocodiles wait. The 19th century, European explorers attempting to navigate the White Nile through the Sud were defeated, not by hostile forces, but by the swamp itself. The vegetation closed behind them, the channels disappeared, the boats became stuck, and they turned back or they died. The Sud has been turning people back for thousands of years. It does not negotiate. Number 2. The Pantanal, Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay. It is the largest tropical wetland on Earth, 68,000 square miles, an area roughly 20 times larger than the Everglades. During the wet season, up to 80% of the Pantanal is underwater. During the dry season, the water recedes and the land, which was a swamp, burns. The predators here are extraordinary. Jaguars, the largest cats in the Americas, that have developed a behavior seen almost nowhere else. They hunt caimans. In the water, a jaguar will wade into a river, grab a caiman by the skull, and crush it. The These are the strongest cats pound for pound on Earth, with a bite force sufficient to pierce reptilian armor. If a jaguar can kill a crocodilian in the water, consider what it could do to you. There are caimans everywhere. During the dry season, as water holes shrink, caimans concentrate in densities that can exceed hundreds per kilometer of river. There are anacondas, the heaviest snakes on the planet, capable of exceeding 100 kilograms. There are piranhas, there are stingrays. There are more species of venomous snakes than almost anywhere else in South America. And then there is fire. In 2024, the Pantanal experienced the worst wildfire season in recorded history. Over 1.3 million hectares burned, nearly 9% of the entire wetland. Climate change, according to a rapid attribution study, made these fires between 4 and 5 times more likely. Jaguar cubs were found burned to death, their bodies carbonized. Tapirs with raw, bloodied paws had been scalded by smoldering cinders. Millions of animals died. The fires reached regions that had never burned before. The Pantanal is a place of extremes. Water and fire, flood and drought, life and death, alternating with a rhythm that has no regard for the things that live there. You can drown in the wet season. You can burn in the dry season. There is no safe time, there is no safe place, and yet it is not number one. Because for all its violence, for all its predators and its fires, the Pantanal does not have the one thing that makes the final entry on this list unique. The Pantanal does not have a predator that has learned to hunt you. Before we reveal the most deadly mangrove on the planet, if you're not subscribed yet, take care of that now. And tell me in the comments, which place on this list shocked you the most? We read every single comment. Now, the number one. Number 1. The Sundarbans, Bangladesh and India. It is the largest contiguous mangrove forest on Earth. Approximately 10,000 square kilometers of tidal waterways, mudflats, and impenetrable forest where the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and the Meghna rivers meet the Bay of Bengal. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is a tiger reserve. And it is, by every measurable standard, the most dangerous mangrove on the planet. There are between 260 and 520 Bengal tigers in the Sundarbans, one of the largest single populations of tigers anywhere on Earth. But the number is not what matters. What matters is their behavior. The tigers of the Sundarbans are the only tiger population in the world that habitually hunts humans as prey. This is not a case of a desperate, old, or injured tiger turning to humans out of necessity. This is not a singular rogue animal. This is an entire population, generation after generation, that has incorporated human beings into its diet, and they are effective. Between 1947 and 1983, tiger attacks in the Sundarbans killed an average of 22.7 people per year. Some estimates place the total death toll at approximately 3,000 people over the past 5 decades. Estimates vary, but the pattern is consistent and it is unbroken. The people who die are not tourists. They are not adventurers. They are fishermen, crab collectors, and honey gatherers, locally called muals, who enter the forest because they have no other way to survive. They enter knowing the risk. They enter because poverty leaves them no alternative. And many of them wear a mask on the back of their head, a painted human face, based on the belief that tigers always attack from behind and will be deterred if they believe they have been spotted. Whether this works is disputed. The death toll suggests that it does not work enough. Why do these tigers hunt humans? The question has consumed researchers for decades. One theory, unproven, and that should be understood as theory, not established fact, suggests that the extremely high salinity of the water in the Sundarbans damages the tiger's kidneys and liver, making them irritable and aggressive. Another theory points to the cyclic devastation of cyclones, which periodically destroy the tiger's natural prey base, forcing them to seek alternative food sources. The full answer is likely a combination of factors: habitat, prey availability, water chemistry, and a learned behavior that passes from one generation to the next. But the tigers are not the only killers in the Sundarbans. There are saltwater crocodiles, the largest living reptile on Earth, capable of exceeding 6 meters in length and weighing over a ton. A study conducted in the Indian section of the Sundarbans found that nearly 80% of human crocodile conflict victims were prawn seedling collectors, working in the shallow water at the edge of the mangroves. A disproportionate number of the victims were women. The crocodiles strike from the murky water, drag their victims under, and the mangrove forest swallows the evidence. There are venomous snakes, king cobras, the longest venomous snakes in the world, Russell's vipers, kraits. The Sundarbans is home to some of the most medically significant snake species in Asia, and a bite in the forest, hours from the nearest clinic, with no cell signal and no transport, is a death sentence. And there are cyclones. The Bay of Bengal is the most cyclone-prone body of water on Earth, and the Sundarbans sits directly in its path. Cyclone Cedar, a Category 5 storm with sustained winds of 260 kilometers per hour, struck in November 2007. The official death toll was 3,363 people, with some estimates reaching as high as 15,000. Over 8 million people were affected. 2 years later, Cyclone Isla killed nearly 200 people across Bangladesh and the Indian state of West Bengal, and unleashed tidal surges that displaced hundreds of thousands. Cyclones Philene, Hudhud, and Bulbul followed in subsequent years, each one stripping the forest, poisoning the water with salt, and deepening the desperation of the people who live on its margins. And then there is the mud. The mud of the Sundarbans is legendary, a thick, adhesive, gray-brown paste that clings to everything. It is not just inconvenient, it is lethal. Fishermen who step off their boats into what looks like solid ground can sink to their waists, their chests, and beyond. The tide comes in, and it comes in fast, rising meters in minutes, and the mud holds them in place while the water rises around them and then over them. The forest does not need a tiger or a crocodile to kill you. The ground itself will do it. The Sundarbans is number one on this list, not because of any single danger, but because of the convergence of all of them. No other mangrove on Earth combines a large predator that hunts humans as habitual prey, the largest crocodile species on the planet, multiple species of lethal venomous snakes, the most violent cyclone zone on Earth, and a terrain that is itself a drowning machine. And beneath all of this, driving the death toll year after year, is the inescapable fact that people have no choice but to enter. The Sundarbans is not an empty wilderness. It is a place where human poverty and natural lethality meet every single day, and the natural lethality always wins. The forest means fear. That is what the people who live there say. Not respect, not caution, fear. 10 wetlands. 10 places where the earth has made it clear, in water, in mud, in fire, in teeth, that we are not welcome everywhere. We build our cities on solid ground. We pave over the marshes. We drain the swamps. We convince ourselves that the planet is ours, that every corner is accessible, that every wilderness can be tamed. And then there are places like these, places that refuse. Places where the water is too deep, the ground too soft, the predators too large, the diseases too invisible, the storms too violent. Places that were here millions of years before us, and that will be here long after we are gone. The Sundarbans has been killing people for centuries. The Sud has been turning back expeditions for just as long. The Pantanal burns and drowns on a schedule that predates human history. These places do not hate us. They do not love us. They simply are, operating on scales of time and force that make human ambition look very small. So the next time you see a photograph of a beautiful wetland, calm water, green canopy, golden light, remember that beauty and lethality are not opposites. In the world's most dangerous swamps and mangroves, they are the same thing. Which one terrified you the most? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications, because the next video takes you somewhere even more impossible than this, a place that shouldn't exist, and that, by every law of nature, should be impossible to survive. I'll see you there.